negritude, blackness, black nationalism, and so on. He was the first really famous black nationalist. I can't go any deeper in a class like this than that, but he is mentioning 1913, and I think the reason he is doing that is because of the Marcus Garvey Back to Africa movement. Well, I think you can read most of this yourself. It's a pretty good presentation of Elijah's speech, I think. On page 70 then, I said at last and had to do some other ricocheted question. I left the church 20 years ago. I haven't joined anything since. They're asking him now about him, James Baldwin, because they want to conciliate him and bring him into the movement in some way. I was a Christian. I was in something of a bind. Now I don't find these things enough. I'm a writer. I like doing things alone. I don't like to be part of movements, he says. Elijah smiled at me. He's very polite. I think he ought to think about it. Elijah said it's his right to think like this, but I think he should think some more about it. And he realized that I was not ready to join forces with him, basically, is what he said. My weak, deluded scruples could avail nothing against the iron word of the prophet, page 71. I felt that I was back in my father's house when I was in this situation, Baldwin speaking. As I indeed was. I told Elijah that I did not care if white and black people married, and I had many white friends, and I would have no choice if it came to it but to perish with them. So here he is being straight with him. He actually has many white friends, as he says, and if the chips were down, he would go down with them rather than have this total separation that Elijah and others were interested in. I love a few people. I said, anyway, if it came to it, I would perish with them. For, as I said to myself, but not to Elijah. And he didn't say this outright. Now, I love a few people. They love me. Some of them are white. And isn't love more important than color? And whether he said that in those words to Elijah or not, that's what he said. So for Baldwin, it's what a person is that was important, not slogans. Now, again, slogans may be the correct way to go. I'm not saying that that isn't the way to do a political or a religious movement, but someone like Baldwin, it is not the way to go. So, what is the way to go? Well, Baldwin is not the leader of a movement or a political party. But I think he is saying spiritual things that people can relate to if you want to. And I think following someone like Baldwin would heal up more wounds than what we're seeing here. But that's your own decision. I know there are people in the room here who disagree. But this is Baldwin, and let's finish him up. Elijah looked at me with great kindness and affection. I don't think Malcolm X would have looked at him with great kindness and affection when he said something like that. He does like Elijah. When you read the Chosen book, I hope you will see the comparison of the rabbi in the Chosen book with Elijah. I think it's a lot of similarities in terms of the effect he has on his followers. As though he was reading my heart, and skeptically said that I might have white friends, or think I did, and they might be trying to be decent, but their time was now up. And I certainly had no evidence to give them that would outweigh Elijah's authority. And page 72, yes, I knew 2 or 3 people white whom I would trust with my life. And I knew a few others white who were struggling as hard as they knew how, and with great effort and sweat and risk to make the world more human. And so on and so forth. So the South Side, however, proved the justice of the indictment. What I was seeing here on the South Side of Chicago, remember I said there's a North Side of Chicago and a South Side? How many have been to the South Side of Chicago? Well, I have. And even today, it's not a place that is very encouraging in terms of seeing the situation that you often see there. I drove around the South Side of Chicago because the University of Chicago is on the South Side of Chicago. and I had a lot of things to do there. I mean, there's people with bonfires everywhere, big garbage sort of things that are being burned at night on the streets and so on, and an atmosphere that people would find, I think, difficult to cope with. And so, as Jay Baldwin is saying,